far away. I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is a special meeting for the Marquette Township Board. We're meeting with the City Commission to discuss our water contract. And I'd like to take roll.
Trustee Marks.
Present.
Trustee Wiegand.
Present.
Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Everson.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rattari is here, and Supervisor Durant.
Here, thank you.
Staff present is Manager Gerard and Superintendent Kirk Page.
Okay, we need approval of our agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion and lots of support. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. Any public comment? Anybody in the audience that wants to speak? No? Okay. Any board member comment? Very good. We do have a privileged comment because of the presentation, but I'm going to ask the city to open their agenda then.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here today. Thank you for providing snow for the 2,200.
We do our part.
I would like to also call this meeting to order. We should do a pledge of allegiance. Can we stand and say the pledge with us, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to do a roll call. We have our city clerk, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Kamenzi. Here. Commissioner Conley.
Here.
Commissioner Frazier.
Yep.
Commissioner Plurd. Commissioner Reynolds. Mayor Pro Tem Baldini.
Here.
Mayor Campana.
Here. We have two commissioners not here. Motion.
I move we excuse Commissioners Reynolds and Ford for this evening's meeting.
For
I believe they are unable to attend this meeting.
Would there be a second? Commissioner Conley?
Second.
Okay. Yes, we do vote. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. We have the agenda in front of us. Someone like to make a motion?
Move we approve the agenda as presented.
Would there be a second? Commissioner Conley?
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carries 5-0. Announcements. The only announcements, this is not a work session, it is a special meeting. We will be voting tonight. Public comment. We do not seem to have anybody here for public comment. I'll open it. Seeing none, I'll close it. Lynn, I'm ready to move to presentation if you are.
Sounds
or
great.
you take whatever you want to do now.
Because you want to do your approval of your minutes after, that's right?
Then we'll do that after, yes.
Okay, sounds good. So we have a joint water study presentation. Ratalis, would that be correct?
Ratalis.
I have RATELIS, financial consultants. Take it away.
Thank you. I appreciate you rolling out the white carpet for me. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about the joint water rate study, and just to kind of refresh everybody's memory of what this is really just a small portion of the water rates, basically the water rates that the city charges the township for supply of water, and then there's a credit that actually the city gives to the township to reflect the fact that some water passes through the township and then back into the city. And so what we're going to be talking today is about the joint utility system. What we mean by joint, this is defined in the contract. It's the portion of utilities in both the city and township that are used to supply service to each other. So in general tonight I'm going to talk to you about the cost of service overview, just the process that we go through. This is the contractual process that's in the contract basically that says, we have to prepare a report every 3 years documenting what the cost of service is for the joint utility system. I'll talk about the overall revenue requirements and how much of the revenue we're talking about, because you have to recognize that we're not talking about the entire revenue requirements for each utility. It's only a portion of the revenue requirements for each utility for the joint system. And then I'll talk about the cost service analysis and what the results of that were in terms of the cost that the city gets from the township and the township gets from the city. And then we'll talk about the allocation of the joint system costs and how that's reflected, and finally the net township rate. What's the rate that the township is going to pay for, that's going to be approved tonight by each of these bodies for the next 3 years. So talking about what is cost service, and it's really an allocation of costs to reflect each customer's usage of the system. So we determine the revenue requirements for each of the township system and the city system for the joint system used to provide service to each other. And then we distribute the costs based on cost of service principles. And what these cost service principles are is they recognize the different demands that different customers place on the system, and in this case, the different customers being the city and the township. So it reflects the fact that each customer doesn't demand water in exactly the same way, and that results in different costs to the system. And then ultimately, like I said, when looking at the cost service process for this, we determine a net township rate that reflects both the cost of the city incurs serving the township, and then the township incurs serving the city. So what costs are allocated to each, the city and the township? So when we look at the city, it's basically O&M cost, operating and maintenance costs for the water treatment plant, for pumping, for city transmission mains that are considered joint, so joint in terms of they're used to provide transmission of the water from the treatment plant on the lake to the township. And then there's a portion of administration and general costs related to those other activities that gets allocated. Then we also pay depreciation and return on the assets used to provide service to the township. So this is the treatment plant, the pumping, and the city transmission mains. And when we talk about this depreciation return, this is what's referred to as the utility basis methodology for rate making. And I know that's a little confusing because, of course, it's a utility. What other basis would we use? But that's a specific term that refers to the fact that customers don't pay the cash revenue requirements. In other words, regardless of how the city finances capital improvements, we only pay depreciation and return on assets that are actually built by the city. But similarly, for the township, we use the same methodology. We look at O&M related to the Cox Reservoir, the township transmission mains that are considered joint provide service to the city as well as themselves, and then, again, a portion of the administration and general cost, just like the city receives. And then the township recovers depreciation return on those assets that are used to provide service to the city, which is the Cox Reservoir and the transmission mains considered joint. So when we look at the overall revenue requirements, these are the revenue requirements from the city for those assets that are considered joint. So the city's overall water budget is bigger than this, but when we allocate costs to the joint system from the whole of the city's costs, basically there's $2.17 million in total costs that are allocable to the joint system. Of course, that doesn't mean the township pays that much. This is just kind of the pot that the township is going to draw from. So the pot that gets allocated between the township and the city is 2.17, and then we'll look at what the township's share of that 2.17 million is here in a minute. Similarly, we allocate the township's cost between what's used to provide service only to their customers and then the joint system, and this is a much smaller number. So the township's, the overall joint system revenue requirements for the township are $77,000. $78,000. Of course, it increases over time. So once we've determined the total pot of costs, then we allocate to cost drivers. And the cost drivers we allocate to are based on, again, the demands placed on the system by the city and the township. And those demands are reflected in base capacity, which is your average day usage, and then maximum day usage. So it recognizes that the two systems have different demands on each other, and the cost of service recognizes that. So once we distribute the cost of service to those activities, we get a breakdown of the cost of service. So you'll see here in the corner is that, oh, you can't see it on the screen, that's the problem. The total revenue requirements of $2.3 million, and then the township's share of that $2.3 million, and this is for 2017, is $231,000. So the township is allocated about 10% of the total joint system cost from the city. Similarly, we go through the same process with the township's revenue requirement. So again, we see the $77,000 total cost here, and then we split it between the city, township, fire protection. And what we determine is the city is responsible for about $70,000 of those costs, whereas the township gets allocated $7,000 of those costs. So then we combine those two and we determine what the net township rate is. What is the net rate for the township? What we have calculated here was the rate we calculated for 2018, just to provide an example, but we did this for every year, and we'll look at that in a minute, what the results were for each year. But for 2018, we take, and you'll see we have the breakdown of costs here, but what's important here is we have the $77,000 in township costs, and then, which $70,000 of it gets allocated to the city, and then the township share of the city costs are $231,000. So when you take the $231,000, basically we determine the township should pay the city for the service it receives, but subtract out the $70,000 that we determined the city should pay the township for their service, it results in a total revenue requirement from the township of $161,000. So when we divide that by the projected units of service for the coming year of 90,304 100 cubic feet, it comes out to a rate of $1.79 per CCF. So that's the net rate that basically takes into account how much the city should be paying the township and how much the township should be paying the city. So we'll look at the rate forecast. And what we've typically done before, so in our study we actually looked at each year for the next several years and what the rate would be based on our projection of return and depreciation. Now, this is only a projection because, of course, we're forecasting what we believe the units of service will be, how much water the township will buy from the city, and the city will sell to its own customers, as well as the fact we have some projection in there of how the city will invest in its capital, what capital reinvestments it will make. And this is why, you know, the contract requires that this study be performed every 3 years, because these things change over time. Things never unfold as we expect them to, and that's why the rate needs to be re-examined periodically. So right now, the net rate that this township pays the city is $1.65 per CCF. And you can see over the next 4 years, actually, we determined that the rate should be $1.79, $1.73, $1.72, and $1.73. So the recommendation that you'll be voting on later tonight is that for the next 3 years that the city will charge a net rate to the township of $1.73, kind of recognizing this up and down and just kind of looking at, you know, what's a fair rate for both parties without having to re-examine this every year. So the proposal, you know, working with staff, was that we introduce a rate of $1.73 per CCF to recognize the proposed net rate. So that's the prepared material I had, and hopefully I didn't go through that too quickly, but I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions that either of the bodies may have about our methodology and the results. Sure.
You're going back and forth between 17 and 18, so is on your last page there,
Yes.
current is 165, so that would have been for 16?
That was for 16, and I believe that rate ended up being in place for 4 years, so yeah.
It was extended. So we're actually voting on what's happening for 18 and beyond, right? Because 17 doesn't change now?
I believe, I honestly don't, does Randy, Kirk?
Actually, the current rate, I mean, it's in existence until it's changed, so if everybody agrees on changing to the new rate,
Okay.
then the
It changed
city will
immediately.
actually.
That's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure, because, yeah, I didn't necessarily see an effective date in that, so it'll change.
That's what I was looking for, okay. So we're actually voting on whether or not to change it for 17. We have a choice?
Well, it won't change what you've already paid, what you've
Right.
already been billed.
Right.
It wouldn't
Just
change
going
retro,
forward.
it would be going forward, yeah.
The next billings.
Okay. So we could ask that it stay at 165 this year?
You could ask, but, I mean, the reality is the 165 was in place longer than even the 3 years that's prescribed by the study, so, I mean, I don't want to tell you how you should look at your
No,
finances, but
I wanna
to
know
some
all
extent,
options.
the township got a break by the rate being in place longer than is contractually required, basically, but that's up to you guys, I can't tell you how to
I just wanna make sure. So if these shift then, if the 179 takes place now, okay, I get it.
Well, and actually-
The rest of the numbers will stay pretty static.
And actually, we showed this just to show you what we calculate the rate each year, because working with city staff, what they wanted to do was just have a single rate, and it's gonna be $1.73. Would be the single rate for the next 3 years.
Okay.
So it is a little bit below what we determined the net cost should be for 2017. Want to make sure I say the right year and not confuse myself or anyone else again. And then, obviously, you see for the next 3 years, it's right there pretty much on $1.73 anyway. So that's why the city wanted to keep things simple for everybody, quite frankly, and just go with that $1.73 rate.
Okay, that makes sense.
So is that the 8% increase?
So the 8% increase is actually, the $1.73 is actually only it's a little less than 5% increase on the rate. The 8% is actually the increase in total revenue, because there's been an increase in usage. And so the 8% number that's in this is actually how much more they're gonna pay this year, but part of that is an increase in usage and not simply an increase in rate.
And it's a 3-year increase, 3-year projection.
Yes.
I thought that the settlement that said it had to be done every 5 years, the study, the water rate study for 5 years. But you come in every 3 years and look at this.
Well, it's been Birchow Cross in the past, but they didn't bid on it, so this was their first time updating it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the settlement agreement has the stipulation. I was thinking it was 3 years. Is it every 5 years?
I think
I thought-
it's been a 3-year cycle.
You just haven't done it for 5 years, I believe.
Yeah.
It's been a 3-year cycle, but we didn't go with, that's the first time.
So it's 3 years at $1.73.
Correct. And according to our projections, quite frankly, that $1.73 rate will be good for a 4th year too, but that's assuming everything unfolds as we have projected it would.
When you come back and look at this again.
We'll come back as soon as you'd like, but
We determined,
Meter run.
I believe my understanding is the settlement agreement, and I haven't read it in a while, but I believe it says that you do it every 3 years. But obviously this time it was a little longer than 3 years, but both parties, were kind of, they were okay with that. And that's just how it unfolded this time.
are we good with that?
Yeah.
Anybody else?
So this will be 17, 18, and 19? Is that right, then?
Well, basically our projection shows that it's a pretty good rate for 22, so it just depends on when you guys decide to re-engage, select a qualified consultant to do another study. As much as I like to do studies, that's really up to you guys how often you want to do it.
I'm just trying to think what the motion would be, so that we can
Motion should
Well,
be-
I believe basically.
Should be a 3-year.
take it in effect like tonight, guys.
To be in compliance with the agreement, it should be a 3-year motion.
Okay.
So then page 5 years for the next 5 years, so we just take that out of there.
Well, that's their projection. They said the rate would be good for up to 5 years. Our contract is on a 3-year rotation.
Right, we looked at a longer period of time in our study than was required to by the contract, just because the staff asked us to kind of have a projection of what they, based on the information provided, what the rates would look like.
Could I have a comment? I mean, basically, the only thing you really need to do is to approve a rate, not the time period.
Okay.
Right, because my understanding is this rate will stay in effect until you replace it with something else. Much like the current rate has stayed in effect until we're replacing it tonight, so you approve it, of course.
I mean, from the township's point, I mean, obviously, we like a locked-in rate forever. From the city side, for them, a study's gonna cost more than the increased revenues they're gonna get, so, so the happy medium is, contract says 3 years.
Okay. So we don't need a time frame in the motion.
Well, that's my opinion, but whatever it is.
I would agree. I mean, it's a rate. The contract in paragraph 6 says it's every 3 years. The parties don't get around to it every 3 years. Nothing's going to change. I mean, I suppose either party could go to court and say we didn't do it in 3 years, or they didn't do it in 3 years, but I think if you just prove the rate,
Until
the
it's
rest will fall.
changed again.
Well, in actuality, it's been a joint decision to continue it.
Correct,
So,
correct, yes. In this case, yeah, no one was complaining it wasn't done.
Okay. Any questions from anybody else? Okay, I think we're good unless you guys
Good.
have some questions or.
Are you guys good?
Anybody have any questions? I think we're good here.
Does it make a difference who makes the motion?
I think
Because
you'll each
is it
need to
one
do your-
accepting the other, or?
I think you'll
Probably have to have
each
two
have to do
motions.
separate motions.
Right, but it doesn't matter
I
which one
have-
goes first.
Lynn, I have some language, maybe you have the same language
For a motion?
for a motion?
Well, they're gonna do their
Go.
motion,
we're gonna do ours.
Do ours,
Yeah.
okay.
Anybody want to tackle
give
it?
me the same motion.
Yeah, do you want to read yours?
Yeah, ours is, move that we accept the water rate study as prepared by Ratliffs, is it?
Should be Raftellus.
Rattel,
Maybe.
financial consultant, adjusted rates in accordance with the independent consultant's recommendation, and direct the city manager to issue a letter to Marquette Township with a reasonable date of planned adjustments.
You're not stating any dollar amount.
Well, it said adjust rates in accordance with the independent recommendation, consultant's recommendation, maybe you ought to put in there dollars, $1.73 for CCF.
Okay, you want to include that language?
I think so, because you feel more comfortable with the actual number in there.
Yeah, so it's a matter of
Yeah,
record.
right now, $3 CCF.
Should our motion and as well as theirs include an agreed date that we adopted?
I wish that someone was here to tell us from the city side how soon it can be implemented. I mean,
Gary,
We can do it immediately, so.
Thousand period, you have to publish it.
Effective for the next billing cycle, probably.
Yeah, we can make it effective on the next
Yeah.
That is tomorrow or
No, it's
the
not.
month or whenever that happens.
material letter.
well, you're gonna prepare the contract and
Okay.
send to them,
So they would need to do a public
but we have to have a motion.
I think it was a letter.
It was a letter.
So it could be
Just a
effective
letter.
immediately.
Yeah.
Do we have a contract?
Well,
Yeah, we have a contract, but I'll just do the letter of the motion.
want me to restate the motion?
Do you want to, it says here, date of planned adjustments, a letter, do you want to put the date of it in, or just to be working it out?
Well, it'd probably be your next billing cycle.
Next billing cycle, whatever.
Next
that
billing
is.
cycle?
Whether that's tomorrow or the first of the month, whenever the next one
Doesn't matter
happens.
to me, Gary has to do it.
Start the next billing.
There's a motion.
We can say that.
All right, so-
No, I know, but,
Do you have a second on
that
that?
could cover
No,
it.
I think Tom was just actually reading the statement rather than making the motion.
All right, I want to make the motion.
Okay.
I was
Go
making
ahead
a
and read
statement.
it.
Oh,
Okay, but I'm prepared to make a motion. Let me read
Oh, I
it.
didn't know that.
Okay.
they're making a motion
Accept
now.
this thing, adjust the rates in accordance with the independent consultant's recommendation, and direct the city manager to issue a letter to Marquette Township with a $1.75 CCF rate effective next
$1.73.
billing.
$1.73.
$1.73. What did I say?
Right.
You can issue the letter,
Thank
but
you.
we want to.
I'm gonna try.
Gary likes five better.
Okay.
Well, we haven't come to this point yet.
I make that motion. Oh, okay.
We're not ready for our motion. Are you gonna make your motion first, or do you want us to go first?
We,
Go ahead.
we don't have any unfinished business, and this is our new business, so that would be our next item is to make our motion.
I have to get the consent agenda, I thought we
Okay.
could do that.
Go ahead.
Okay, we need a motion to approve the consent agenda from our last meeting. Commissioner Frazier?
Approve. Make a
Second
motion to
reading,
approve the
Commissioner
consent
Conlon.
agenda, yep.
I move that we adopt I second that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, discussion, none, all in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed, that carries 5-0. We're ready for new business, which would be the
Motion.
agenda item.
Your motion? Okay.
You want us, we're ready?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, someone want to make the motion? Commissioner Baldini?
Okay. Recommend to accept the water rate study as prepared through Raftels Financial Consultants, Inc. Adjust rates in accordance with the independent consultant's recommendation and direct the city manager to issue a letter to Marquette Township at $1.73 CCF rate effective next billing cycle.
Do we have a second? Do we have a second? Commissioner Cambenzi? Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed? Carries 5-0.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the acceptance of the water rate study as prepared by Rafaelis Financial Consultants Incorporated, and concur with the recommendation to adjust the water rates to stabilize the rate at 173 per CCF effective the next billing cycle.
We have support? Support. Motion and support, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. That was easy. Do you have anything else, any business you have to conduct now? Do you have any other business?
Just we're at public comment. Again, does anybody want to make public comment? I open it up, seeing none, we close it. Next, we're just comments from the commission. Anybody care? Mr. Conley?
Thanks for having us, and thanks for making it easy.
And I echo what he says. Thank you for having us here. Thank you for a smooth meeting, and hopefully everything will go good. You know, I did ask, I was thinking about this. What happens if there's a water break or something, and who gets stuck with that? Say in the township, a pipe
Well,
bursts.
if it happens within the township system, then they would pay for the flow, because unless you, I mean, what happens in a case like that is sometimes maybe you'll reach an agreement, just like, I mean, unfortunately Kurt's not here, but I know many utilities, if somebody has a break in their home, you may say, well, as long as you prove that you had a plumber come fix it, we'll adjust out, kind of that excess usage that's way beyond normal.
Let's just hope it doesn't happen.
Right, I mean, to the extent legally, if it happens in their system, then they're responsible for the water, but from a practical point of view, a lot of times utilities will work something out. And it's kind of an exception basis.
Okay, thank you. City manager? Nothing? Lynn, we're done. Up to you. What do you got?
We've got public comment next too. Do we have any public that wants to say anything? Any board member comment? All the way down? No?
It was nice and smooth.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for coming. We appreciate this. I'd like to do this again, but for other stuff. Maybe we can keep talking water. You never know. Maybe let's meet again.
Water is important. Yeah. No, this
Mark Twain used to say, whiskey's for drinking, water's for fighting.
Can't have whiskey without water.
Yeah, next time we'll get a
The
lot closer.
significance of it all, yeah.
Thank you for coming up here.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, I appreciate it. The white welcome.
We're adjourned.
Motion to adjourn? Yep. Second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We go to the next one.
All our meetings.